The stars were like diamonds scattered across the velvet blackness of space, and the ship hung motionless, a tiny, insignificant speck in the vastness of the universe. Captain Jameson sat in the command chair, his eyes fixed on the view screen as the stars wheeled slowly around him. The silence was almost palpable, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's engines and the gentle hiss of the air recycling system. It was a moment of beauty, a moment of peace, a moment that would stay with Jameson for the rest of his life. For in the next instant, the universe would spin wildly out of control, and the ship would be plunged into a maelstrom of chaos. The alarm sounded, a shrill, insistent wail that cut through the stillness like a knife. Jameson's eyes snapped away from the view screen, his heart racing as he turned to his first officer, John Lee. "What is it, John?" he barked. Lee's face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Captain, we're experiencing some kind of... I don't know, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's like the fabric of space-time itself is unraveling around us." Jameson's gut twisted into a knot as he turned back to the view screen. The stars were shifting, swirling, as if they were alive, dancing to some mad rhythm. The ship shuddered, throwing Jameson against the restraints of his chair, and a low, ominous rumble began to build in intensity, growing louder with every passing second. The rumble grew to a deafening roar, threatening to shake the ship apart. Jameson's knuckles were white as he gripped the arms of his chair, his eyes fixed on the view screen as the universe seemed to unravel before his eyes. Lee's voice was shrill with fear. "Captain, we're experiencing gravitational waves like nothing I've ever seen. It's like the fabric of space-time is tearing apart." Jameson's mind raced as he tried to comprehend what was happening. He had heard of gravitational waves, of course, the theoretical ripples in the fabric of space-time that Einstein had predicted, but he had never imagined they could be so intense, so destructive. The ship lurched violently to one side, throwing Jameson against the restraints once more. Alarms blared and warning lights flashed as the ship's systems began to fail. Suddenly, the view screen went dark, plunging the bridge into an eerie, flickering half-light. The silence that followed was oppressive, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Lee's voice was barely above a whisper. "Captain, I think we're falling through a wormhole." Jameson's eyes locked onto the blank screen, his mind reeling as the implications sank in. A wormhole, a theoretical tunnel through space-time, was the only explanation for what was happening. But where were they going? And what would they find on the other side? The ship shuddered once more, and the darkness on the view screen began to dissolve, revealing a swirling vortex of colors that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The colors swirled and churned, a mesmerizing dance of light and energy that seemed to draw Jameson in, hypnotic in its power. He felt himself leaning forward, his eyes fixed on the view screen as if he was being pulled into the very heart of the wormhole. Lee's voice was a distant murmur, barely audible over the sound of his own heartbeat. "Captain, I'm reading strange energy signatures ahead. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Jameson didn't respond. He was transfixed by the colors, his mind reeling as he felt the ship being drawn closer and closer to the heart of the wormhole. The colors seemed to be shifting, taking on a life of their own. Shapes began to form, tantalizing glimpses of something. Planet? A star? A galaxy? The ship lurched once more, and Jameson's stomach dropped as the gravity compensators struggled to keep up with the intense forces at play. The colors on the view screen seemed to coalesce, taking on a strange, crystalline structure that seemed to shimmer and glow with an inner light. "Captain," Lee's voice was tight with fear. "I think we're emerging from the wormhole." Jameson's eyes snapped back into focus, his mind racing as he tried to process what he was seeing. The view screen was filled with a stunning vista, a crystalline landscape that seemed to stretch out to infinity. The ship shuddered once more, and the engines died with a final, defeated whine. The silence that followed was oppressive, heavy with the weight of the unknown. Jameson's voice was barely above a whisper. "We're here." Lee's eyes were wide with wonder as he gazed out at the crystalline landscape. "Where is this place, Captain?" he breathed. Jameson shook his head, his mind reeling as he tried to take it all in. I don't know, John, he admitted, but I think we're a long, long way from home. The ship was silent, the only sound the creaking of strained metal and the soft hiss of escaping air. Jameson knew they had to act fast, to assess their situation and figure out how to get back home. But as he turned to give the order, he caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. A figure standing at the edge of the crystalline plain. A figure that seemed to be watching them. Lee followed his gaze, and his eyes went wide with shock. Captain, is that? Jameson's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know, John, but I think we're not alone here. The figure didn't move, didn't respond in any way. But Jameson could feel its gaze, a cold, calculating weight that seemed to press down on him like a physical force. Suddenly, the air was filled with a strange, musical hum, a sound that seemed to vibrate through every molecule of air. The figure didn't move, but Jameson could feel a sense of tension building, as if the very fabric of space-time was growing tighter and tighter. Lee's voice was barely audible. Captain, what's happening? Jameson's eyes were fixed on the figure. I don't know, John, he admitted, but I think we're about to find out. The hum grew louder, more intense, until it was almost unbearable. The air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, and Jameson could feel the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. Suddenly, the figure raised its hand, and the hum stopped. The silence that followed was oppressive, heavy with anticipation. Jameson's eyes were fixed on the figure, his heart pounding in his chest. What was this thing? What did it want? The figure took a step forward, its movements fluid and almost alien. Jameson's mind reeled as he tried to process what he was seeing. The figure raised its hand again, and a gleaming, crystalline object appeared in its palm. The object pulsed with a soft, blue light, and Jameson felt a sense of wonder, of awe wash over him. Lee's voice was barely above a whisper. Captain, what is that? Jameson shook his head, his eyes fixed on the object. I don't know, John, he admitted, but I think it's some kind of key. The figure took another step forward, its eyes fixed on Jameson. And in that moment, Jameson knew that their fates were inextricably linked, that the course of human history was about to change forever. The figure spoke, its voice like music, its words echoing in Jameson's mind. Welcome, Captain, it said. I have been waiting for you. My name is Archie, and I am the guardian of this place.